New Life International. I am Devon McGuire, the president of New Life International and the inventor of the McGuire water purifier. There are over 1 billion people in the world who lack access to safe drinking water. That's more than 1 out of 6 people. It is sometimes estimated that in Africa, over half the hospital beds are occupied by patients who have been victimized by some sort of a waterborne ailment. Working together, we can make a difference to turn these statistics into history. I have personal experience with waterborne diseases. When I lived in Costa Rica and Ecuador as a young person, I had a personal encounter with Giardia and nearly died while I was in Ecuador. And so I know what it's like to not get used to the water you drink and not get used to the ailments that might be in the water. They really can make you sick, and in many cases they can be fatal. And as a result, this has become one of my passions of helping those in need have safe water and to not experience some of the things that I did as a kid. New Life International has worked with partners around the world to help deploy over 1,500 water purification systems, which have now been sent out to over 62 countries. Today we're going to be looking at some of the different aspects of how to set up, operate, and train on the McGuire water purifier so that you too can go out and make a difference. I'd like to introduce you to some very important people here at New Life. This is Terry Fry, and she's been working with us and doing water purification training for well over 8 years. And then Doug Lark here has traveled quite a bit overseas and helped with installations and disaster relief, and is one of our key people here. So we'd like to introduce you to our important staff here, and they're going to share with you some of the details here on how to unpack the purifier and what to expect in the blue box. Go ahead, folks.
Thank you, Devon. When a purifier is shipped out of New Life International, it's shipped in a Rubbermaid tote like this. It has black tie wraps. You can see we have holes in the lid to tie it down. So when you get your purifier, this is what it's going to look like. So we're going to open it up and I'm going to show you what's inside. The purifier is packed in bubble wrap, so we're going to take the bubble wrap out first. And the first thing that you'll notice is our instruction manual. It's a pictorial manual, and I would encourage you to follow this manual, and it will show you all of the ways to assemble the purifier and how to operate the purifier. So we'll go over that in just a minute. Inside of our blue box, we have 2 hoses. Now remember, this is just the basic water purifier kit. But everything is in this kit that you will need to chlorinate water and get a system up and running. We have our 2 hoses with brass fittings. We have a Venturi with 2 spigots on it, gooseneck ball valves. We have a Rubbermaid container to dissolve our salt in. We have a goodie bag, and I'll go over that in just a minute. We have a submersible pump in each one of the kits. We have 3 hoses. We have 2 drain hoses, and the short small hose is where the chlorine gas flows through. We have a chlorine tube or salt sides tube with a lid on it. We have a sodium hydroxide tube that has a heat exchanger in it. The heat exchanger just sits down in it. It's packed with a piece of foam rubber. You'll need to take that out. We have some extra zip ties in case when you're hanging the purifier, you need to hang it. We've included those. And our all-important hub. This is what makes the purifier work. The first thing that I would recommend you do in opening your manual is to double check to make sure everything is in your kit that you're going to need. Everything is listed right here in the manual. So we'll go through that and make sure that we have it. We have our chlorine tube, our salt side tube, sodium hydroxide. We have the hub, and we have our Venturi. We have our goodie bag. We have our short 1/4-inch hose. We have our two 3/8-inch drain hose. We have our heat exchanger that has brass fittings on it. And we have our two hose. One hose is for the water to flow through the purifier and the other one is the outlet hose. So now let's assemble this. And we have our bottle. And let me show you what is in our goodie bag. In our manual, it has a listing of all of the things that are in there. Here's our Rubbermaid bottle. Remember that most of the things in our goodie bag you are not going to use during the operation of the purifier initially. Everything that we've sent along are extra things, just in case something gets broken off. For instance, one of these little barbs, we have two here, at the bottom of each one of the hub on the chlorine side and on the sodium hydroxide side. The hose fits onto that, and if you wiggle it and break it off, you have a spare. We have hose clamps, we have extra tape. The things that you will be using during the operation of the purifier is our chlorine test kit, and we'll only be using the yellow side. We have 2 bottles of solution so we can test the level of our chlorine, and we have a little salt cup to measure our salt. So let's just get these things out of the way, and then I'll show you how to assemble the purifier. Again, use the manual as you go through step by step. And the first thing the manual says, how to assemble the purifier, is we're going to put our chlorine side on our hub. So we're going to take this off. We're going to unwrap our leads so they don't get in the way. And notice on the hub on the chlorine side we have a pink sticker here. In the sodium hydroxide side we have an orange sticker. There is a front and a back to the purifier. And when you hang the purifier on something solid, either a tree or a stand or on the side of the tank itself, you want the chlorine side always to your right as you face the purifier. So the chlorine side. Also another good indicator on the back of the purifier is a sticker. And that sticker always goes to the back so you can see the bubbles in the sodium hydroxide side. So we're going to hand tighten our chlorine tube down. We want to match up the stickers. You can see that we have a minimum and a maximum. These are this will be our salt water levels. We want it between these two. It has a hose keeper. It has a cap on it. And we'll show you later how to fill them. Now we're going to take the sodium hydroxide tube, the same thing. We're going to put it on the sodium hydroxide side, hand tighten it down. We're going to move it around so our stickers match. You can see we have our hose keeper here. We have zip ties already on the purifier. This is to use to hang the purifier. You can either attach them to one nail or one like this or like this. You can hang it like this. Now when the purifier is hung, you always want to hang it at a slight angle with the sodium hydroxide side just a little bit higher than the chlorine side. All right, let's, we're going to put our tubes on next. We're going to put our drain tubes on. So we're going to push it up on the barb. Now if you push it all the way up, the tube all the way up on the barb, it's going to be very hard to get out. So be very careful if you're taking the tubes out and wiggling it back and forth. This is how the barbs get broke off. But you want it on secure enough so that it doesn't come loose and drain all the sodium hydroxide out. The tube on the chlorine side we're going to put it up in the keeper. This tube also is a drain tube, but on this side it's also an air tube. And the Venturi, we'll explain later, is going to be sucking air through this tube. So this is what our purifier looks like so far. Now we're going to attach our hose to our Venturi, into our heat exchanger. If you look at the Venturi real close, you're going to see that it's got a short side and a long side. The way the water flows is from the short side to the long side. In the Venturi, the water will come in, be squeezed way down, and then out again. This creates a suction through this tube, this quick connect. You'll also notice on the Venturi we have two gooseneck ball valves here. These are for testing our water in our tank. This one we'll use to test the water in our tank. This one we will use to test the water that comes out as it picks up the chlorine gas. So we're going to assemble our, first we're going to put our hose on our heat exchanger. We have two hoses. And we're going to put the heat exchanger, male to female, on our brass fittings. You can hand tighten these down. Sometimes you may need to use a adjustable wrench if you have a little leak. If you use a wrench, you want to always put the wrench on the flat side, hold it here. Never use the curved part of the heat exchanger as a handle. You never want to use it as a handle. Now we're going to, let's put this on next. Now remember, the heat exchanger goes down into the sodium hydroxide tube. And the Venturi works best if this nipple of the Venturi points down in the same direction that the heat exchanger is. So this is where you might use your adjustable wrench to turn this all the way around so that our heat exchanger points down and our Venturi points down. Now we're going to put our hose, I'll have Doug pull the other end, put it on there. Put our hose on. Okay. Now the Venturi is ready to put down inside of the, put on the purifier, heat exchanger down inside. Now the Venturi can go either in front of the chlorine tube or it can go behind. It doesn't make any difference, whichever is easiest. It can go behind like this. Now the last thing that we're going to put on is our little hose. These little short pieces of hose here are called quick connects. They're a little bit larger than our 1/4" hose, and it just slides right up inside. So now we have connected the chlorine side tube to the Venturi. We have to put this little submersible pump on our intake. You'll notice that the submersible pump has an inlet. It has a piece that's packed with it. We're going to hand tighten this piece on that connects to our hose. And then we are going to connect our submersible pump to our hose. Now as we do this batch process, the water will be pumped with our submersible pump up through the braided hose, down through the heat exchanger. And why do we have a heat exchanger, Doug?
We have a heat exchanger because during the process, heat can build up in the fluid on the sodium hydroxide side. So this heat exchanger allows us to dissipate some of that heat that's in the water.
But does the sodium hydroxide ever touch the water that flows through?
Sodium hydroxide never touches the water. It's strictly as a means of being able to dissipate the heat.
Okay, so we have our water coming up, going through the heat exchanger, through the Venturi, being squeezed down and picking up some chlorine gas, and then our output back down into our tank. Right. I would like to show you an option that we have available at New Life. Instead of using the little submersible pump that comes in every one of the basic Purifier kits, we can take the submersible pump off, and we have a manual pump available that's an accessory. To do that, again, what you would do is connect the hose here. The water flows in through this hose. This would go in your water source, whether it be a tank or a bucket or a barrel. The water flow, you pump the water up through the hose, through the venturi, and down into our treatment tank. Now we are ready to hang our purifier.